你看哦，你看是不是 sharing is caring? Today we start on a happy note. Colombia tied 0-0 with Portugal in the World Cup. And that's how they finished first in the group. Well, happy with the result, but today is not about football. Today is Sunday, and it's time to show you something else. Hi, I'm Chile, a freelance designer, which in practical terms means I don't have a stable job, a fixed salary, or paid vacations. This is my story living in Shanghai with my Chinese wife and my 3.5-year-old daughter, right when it already feels like summer is on its way. We live in the Jing'an area, one of the most central areas of Shanghai. Some of the city's most luxurious shopping centers are located here, and big brands always set up giant installations to draw attention. This huge red lion on top of the building is from Loewe. It has been there for a few days, and people come to take photos. Today is Sunday, but we are already entering the height of summer, and on this corner, as always, there are traffic police checking that electric scooter drivers especially are wearing helmets. Sometimes they also stop people, and they have even stopped my bicycle when I'm riding on the wrong sidewalk. In recent years, several cities in China, Shanghai included, tightened the helmet law for motorcycles and electric bicycles. Now it's normal to see checkpoints like this hidden on corners, especially on weekends. Today, around here, they are mostly stopping electric scooters. We have arrived at Xiangyang Park on the street of the same name. On this corner, there is a restored building with a facade from the 1930s that became a classic spot for influencers to take photos. This park is not as giant as Zhongshan Park, but it is much more central. It is located right between Xiangyang Street and Huaihai Road, one of the most iconic avenues in Shanghai. This area used to be part of the old French concession, which is why you can still see buildings from the 1920s and 30s mixed with the modern city. Something surprised me here. I saw people lying on the grass, something I almost never see in Chinese parks. I told my wife, look, it's the first time I've seen this in this park. And I immediately understood why. Those who were lying down were not Chinese, they were foreigners. For a long time, most Chinese parks had signs asking people not to step on or sit on the grass. That custom still persists culturally, although the rules have relaxed quite a bit. As in almost all parks in China, it's normal to see people practicing Tai Chi, those slow movements of breathing and body control. But this group wasn't doing Tai Chi exactly. They were practicing something involving physical contact, some martial art that I couldn't properly identify what it was. The one I pointed out might be a shifu, a word used in Chinese for a master of a trade or martial arts. But most of the time, these are ordinary people, usually retirees, who simply enjoy staying active. A little further down, a lady was doing shufa, or Chinese calligraphy, but with water on the ground. That is called Dishu, ground calligraphy, and it is one of the favorite hobbies of grandparents in Chinese parks. They don't waste paper or ink, only water, and the sun takes care of erasing everything in minutes. She was writing a Chinese proverb, something about yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Although, to be honest, I didn't 100% understand the explanation the lady gave me. We like to come to this park for a very specific reason. It has a slide. Not all parks in China have this type of children's playground equipment. So when we find one, we try to return often. Yes, it's a bit far from home, but the change of scenery is worth it. My daughter enjoys herself a lot, especially when there are other children to play with. Today, she brought this bubble gun and the rest of her usual toys. In your city, do the parks have this type of children's playground equipment, or are they more for walking and exercising over there? Leave it for me in the comments. After almost an hour, my daughter had already made another little friend, a boy of about 2 years old with his young parents, watching over him nearby. And here something caught my attention. A young man, I think a teenager, who was overweight, riding in an electric wheelchair like a scooter. This type of mobility chair, more in the American style, was nothing like anything in China about 10 years ago when I arrived. In the last decade, I've seen them more and more, although it's still not an everyday sight.
哎，往上抛，眼挂接住。你跟谁一起玩哈人事情？弟弟还一起。哦，是吗？
It's already around 12:30 and hunger is starting to knock on the door. Almost all parks in China have free public restrooms, open 24 hours a day. For me, coming from Colombia, that is still an uncommon luxury. For lunch, we walked to a street called Xinle Lu, or Xinle Road. All these areas are full of small local shops, boutiques that are not well-known brands but rather belong to independent Chinese designers. Chang'an Road is famous precisely for that, for being one of the most authentic fashion streets in Shanghai, far from the big shopping malls. We arrived at a restaurant that has existed since before I arrived in Shanghai about 15 years ago. The place is called Hu Xi Lao Longtang. The name means more or less the noodle house of the old alley. The first character, Hu, is the classic nickname used for Shanghai. The most popular dish here is pork noodles. They also have pork chops with mushrooms and onions. Shanghainese food is characterized by being a bit sweet and using a lot of soy sauce, just the opposite of the spicier food from other regions of China. Something curious about this restaurant is that they have photos everywhere, and on the television, they are always playing concerts by Jay Chou, a Taiwanese singer. Jay Chou, whose real name is Zhou Jielun, is practically an idol for an entire generation in the Chinese world. Something similar to what someone like Juanes or Shakira was for us Latin Americans in the year 2000. I ordered the pork noodles, which come with two types of meat, in chunks and with minced pork. My wife ordered soup noodles with pork liver, which is very good, although to be honest, I'm not a big fan of liver. And as always, vegetables on the side are not missing. Each of these dishes costs about 24 yuan, which means more or less $4. This is one of the reasons why we like to discover this type of place. This restaurant has 4 branches in the city, one quite close to our house, but today, since we were already in this park, we decided to come to this one. And besides, the service is excellent. Taking advantage of the fact that we are talking about food, a topic came up that always makes me curious: the taste of pork in China. When I arrived more than 15 years ago, I didn't like pork in general. Things like pork chops simply didn't taste good to me. But over time, I tried it again. And the truth is, it tastes different from the pork in Colombia. My wife explained to me why. Here in China, they bleed the pork well during the process. And that changes the flavor quite a bit. It gives it a slightly sweet touch. In Colombia, according to her, it is normally not bled the same way, and that's why the flavor is different. Curiously, I already like the pork here, but the chicken and beef in Colombia are still superior there. On leaving, I saw more posters of the singer with the highlights of his career. And there I found out something I didn't know. He is 47 years old, 1 year younger than me. What was the singer or the band that you listened to non-stop when you were 15 or 16 years old? Leave it for me in the comments. I'm curious to know what was playing in each of your countries. Going out, there were more boutique shops. And my wife felt like having a bubble tea or a rice pearl tea at a place called Dian. Dian is one of the largest bubble tea chains in China. It was born in Taiwan and today has thousands of stores spread across the country. She likes to order it with less sugar, especially because she always ends up sharing it with my daughter. That has already become almost a routine for her, like coffee for me. There we found murals with cartoon drawings from the 1930s and 40s. These drawings are by a famous cartoonist named Feng Zikai. And he lived right in this lane, in a place known as Changal Village. Feng Zikai is considered one of the fathers of modern Chinese comics. He lived there for more than 20 years, and several of his cartoons, including some against the war, are still displayed on the walls of the neighborhood. And continuing through these lanes, or as they are known in Chinese, longtang, we came across a turtle. Longtang is the word for these typical residential alleys of Shanghai, where sometimes everything is hidden. Cafes, tattoo parlors, shops that one would never expect to find behind such a simple facade. My daughter was a bit scared. I think she had never seen a real turtle before. She thought it wasn't alive. It was already around 2:30 in the afternoon, time to go home. On the way, we crossed through a lane, or a longtang, that connects directly from one street to the other. One of those routes that you only learn by walking the city a lot of times. And that's how our Sunday afternoon ends. Now it's time to get home, rest for a bit, and honestly, take a nap. Nothing extraordinary happened today. It was a normal Sunday: park, lunch, a walk, a tea. But told like this calmly, I feel that even the simplest thing has its charm. What is a normal Sunday like for you? Tell me in the comments. Really, I would like to read them all. And if you want to continue accompanying this Chino Rolo in these day-to-day adventures, you already know what to do. See you in the next video. Bye bye.
Eso, toca esperar porque está en rojo, mira. Las luces están roja, roja, roja.